And we're live. Greetings, friends. Happy Wednesday. What was I going to say? Welcome to Western Wednesdays. Tonight we are going to be reading a Roger Ebert review on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And also I dug up an old Sergio Leone interview from 1984 from American film. Sergio Leone, as you know, is the director of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, among others, of course. Miko Herbtile says, hello, superantonio, Sadie, Mods, and everyone. And J-Lash has a bunch of thumbs ups for us. Thank you, J-Lash. Appreciate you. And as always, Miko, I'm glad you're here. I need you here to control the unruly bastards in the chat. Which are at present you and me, friend. You and me. I have a new live stream schedule that is completely at odds with this thing we have up here. And I meant to update that today. It was on my list of things to do. It did not happen. Basically, Western Wednesdays remains today. We're going to do Western movies. Tony Vasquez says, I'm an unruly bastard. You certainly are, Tony, but I appreciate you being here. And you're not really a bastard. And it's bastard with an E, like Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. At one point, I was thinking of making a t-shirt, but I like calling the chat unruly bastards. It's a misnomer. It's a term of affection. You're certainly the opposite of a bastard. You're super Tony. What was I going to say? Okay, yeah, Western Wednesdays remains. We're going to talk about Western movies on Wednesdays. Friday is the Bad Honor full game commentary and playthrough. Saturday is LA Noir. Sunday is Wild Card. Maybe a scary movie because it's Halloween, so we might do a movie review. Maybe we'll do more LA Noir. Maybe we'll do a Bad Honor commentary and playthrough. What's that about? Depends. Depends on how I feel. And Monday, for the time being, shout out to Callum in Ireland, we will continue with Grand Theft Auto. Though LA Noir streams and Grand Theft Auto streams almost automatically get demonetized or limited viewers or limited ads, which is the same thing. But, you know, I do like Trevor. I'm happy to be demonetized for Trevor. And I'm really enjoying LA Noir. Love those cars. Miko says hello to J-Lash and Tony says hi to Miko. Thank you, friends. Appreciate you being here. Sadie's here, at least for now. How's everyone's week going? I was very busy and finally slowed down a bit today. Not enough for me to update this sign up here. It was on my list. I'll try. You know, I had the best of intentions, and about 10 minutes before the stream, I wanted to work on it, but I would not have gotten it up in time. But it'll be in time for the next stream. Tony says, Trevor is my spirit animal. Same here. He's my favorite character in GTA 5. I love Trevor. I know you're not supposed to. He's a horrible person. He's horrifying. And I have so much fun playing as him. I've got the greatest outfit for him. It's a bowling shirt, a trucker hat, of course, and just these absolutely filthy gray sweatpants and you know, combat boots. He looks great. I also like the actor Stephen Ogg. He's been in a bunch of things that he was in Westworld, and he was in the first incarnation of The Tick, if you know that Amazon series, The Tick, that comic book series. Here, we can always keep her occupied with some potent canine bait. At any rate, Miko says, same old, thanks for asking. Hope everyone's okay with everyone. Everything's okay with everyone. Okay, Miko, well, you know, I'm happy to have you here. I appreciate your support for the channel. You're always here. You always have my back. And it is appreciated. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as always, I have a little slideshow for you that we will not show at full screen to circumvent the copyright licensing issues that we do not have. From RogerEbert.com. A vast, empty western landscape. The camera pans across it. Then the shot slides onto a sunburned, desperate face. The long shot has become a close-up without a cut, revealing that the landscape was not empty, but occupied by a desperado very close to us. In these opening frames, Sergio Leone established a rule that he follows throughout The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The rule is that the ability to see is limited by the sides of the frame. At important moments in the film, what the camera cannot see, the characters cannot see, and that gives Leone the freedom to surprise us with entrances that cannot be explained by the practical geography of his shots. There is a moment, for example, when men do not notice a vast encampment of the Union Army until they stumble upon it, and a moment in a cemetery when a man materializes out of thin air, even though he should have been visible for a mile, and the way the men walk down a street in full view and nobody is able to shoot them, maybe because they are not in the same frame with them. Leone cares not at all about the practical or the plausible and builds his great film on the rubbish of Western movie cliches, using style to elevate dreck into art. When the movie opened in America in late 1967, not long after its predecessors A Fistful of Dollars in 1964 and For a Few Dollars More in 1965, audiences knew they liked it, but did they know why? I saw it sitting in the front row of the balcony of the Oriental Theater, whose vast wide screen was ideal for Leone's operatic compositions. I responded strongly, but had been a movie critic less than a year, and did not always have the wisdom to value instinct over prudence. Looking up my old review, I see I described a 4-star movie, but only gave it 3 stars, perhaps because it was a, quote, spaghetti western, so it could not be art. But art it is, summoned out of the imagination of Leone and painted on the wide screen so vividly that we forget what marginal productions these films were, that Clint Eastwood was a Hollywood reject, that budgetary restraints, $200,000 for Fistful, caused gaping continuity errors, that there wasn't a lot of dialogue because it was easier to shoot silent and fill the soundtrack with music and effects. There was even a pathetic attempt to make the film seem more American. I learned from the critic Glenn Erickson that Leone was credited as Bob Robertson in the early prints of Fistful, and composer Ennio Morricone, whose lonely, mournful scores are inseparable from the films, was Dan Savio. Even Eastwood's character, the famous man with no name, was an invention of the publicists. He was called Joe in the first movie, Manco in the second, and Blondie in the third. Perhaps it is the subtly foreign flavor of the spaghetti trilogy, and especially the masterpiece The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, that suggests the films come from a different universe than traditional westerns. Instead of tame Hollywood extras from central casting, we get locals who must have been hired near the Spanish locations, men who look long weathered by work and the sun. Consider the legless beggar who uses his arms to propel himself into a saloon, shouting, "Hand me down a whiskey." John Ford made Monument Valley the home turf of his Western characters, and he made great films there, but there is something new and strange about Leone's menacing Spanish vistas. We haven't seen these deserts before. John Wayne has never been here. Leone's stories are a heightened dream in which everything is bigger, starker, more brutal, more dramatic than life. Leone tells the story more with pictures than words. Examine the masterful scene in the cemetery. A fortune as gold is said to be buried in one of the graves, and the three men have assembled, all hoping to get it. The actors are Clint Eastwood, the good, Lee Van Cleef, the bad, and Eli Wallach, the ugly. Each man points a pistol at the other. If one shoots, they all shoot, and all die. Unless two decide to shoot the third man before he can shoot either one of them. But which two, and which third? Leone draws this scene out beyond all reason, beginning in the long shot and working into close-ups of firearms, faces, eyes, and lots of sweat and flies. He seems to be testing himself to see how long he can maintain the suspense. Or is it even suspense, really? It may be entirely an exercise in style, a deliberate manipulation by the director intended to draw attention to itself. If you savor the boldness with which Leone flirts with parody, you understand his method. This is not a story, but a celebration of bold gestures. Roger Ebert is one of my favorite reviewers. He's a great writer, and he's very good at analyzing movies. Eastwood, 34, when he first worked with Leone, already carried unquestioned authority. Interesting, because that was around the age that Harrison Ford was when he made Han Solo, when he did Star Wars, Han Solo. They were in their early to mid 30s. Technically, as actors, if you haven't made it by 24, 28, you're not going to make it, at least in Hollywood, unless you're a character actor. But you could argue that Clint Eastwood followed the same career trajectory that Harrison Ford did. There's comparisons to be made there that I didn't realize. Eastwood, 34, when he first worked with Leone, already carried unquestioned authority. Much is made of the fact that he came from television, that he starred in Rawhide, that in those days it was thought that a movie audience wouldn't pay to see an actor if it could watch it for free. That prejudice or superstition progressed and it's still with us today to an extent, except like the movie system has been broken up and it's all streaming now. But certainly Bruce Willis in the 80s, he starred on TV, wasn't considered a real actor for a long time. And when Brad Pitt was dating Jennifer Aniston, it was seen as a step backwards for his career because he was dating a TV actor and he was a movie star. And I believe he had left Gwyneth Paltrow for Jennifer Aniston. And I think he even I know he guest starred on Friends. My sister was addicted to Friends. And that was seen as like a backwards move on his career path, because he was a big time movie star. What was he doing slumming it in TV? Now it's all blended together and we're just kind of watching it on our phones. Eastwood overcame that jinx, but not any actor could have done it, and not with any director. He says he took the roles with Leone because he wanted to make movies and Hollywood wouldn't hire him. Yes, but Eastwood himself was to become an important director, and even then he must have sensed in Leone not just another purveyor of the Italian sword and sandal epics, but a man with passion. Together, Leone and Eastwood made The Man with No Name not simply bigger than a television star, but bigger than a movie star, a man who never needed to explain himself, a man whose boots and fingers and eyes were deemed important enough to fill the whole screen. I wonder if Eastwood's character has a tenth as much dialogue as Tuco, Eli Wallach's character. The Man with No Name never talks, while Tuco never stops. This is one of Wallach's inspired performances. He sidesteps his character's potential to seem ridiculous and makes him a desperate, frightened presence. When he makes a clown of himself, We sense it as Tuco's strategy, not his personality. Trained in method, a stage veteran, Eli Wallach took this low-rent role seriously and made something evocative out of it. Lee Van Cleef, as Angel Eyes, was New Jersey-born. Already a veteran of 53 films and countless TV shows, many of them westerns, his first movie credit was High Noon, where he played a member of the gang. In a movie with a lot of narrowed eyes, he has the narrowest, and they gleam with insane obsession. All three men are after the fortune in Civil War gold, and the secret of its location is parceled out among them. One knows the cemetery, but not the grave. The other knows the name on this tombstone, but not the cemetery. So they know that they will remain alive until the grave is found, and then it is likely that each of them will try to kill the others. In a film that runs 180 minutes in its current restored version, that is not enough plot, but Leone has no shortage of other ideas. There is the opening shootout involving unrelated characters. There is the con game in which Wallach plays a wanted man. Eastwood turns him in for the reward, and then Eastwood waits until he is about to be hanged and severs the rope with a well-aimed shot. There is the magnificent desert sequence after Eastwood abandons Wallach in the desert, and then Wallach does the same to Eastwood, and the sun burns down like a scene from Greed. There is the haunting runaway wagon filled with the dead and dying men. And, surprisingly, there is an ambitious Civil War sequence, almost a film within a film, featuring a touching performance by Aldo Giuffre as a captain in the, Giuffre, as a captain in the Union Army, who explains his alcoholism simply. The commander who has the most booze to get his troops drunk before the battle is the one who wins. His dying line is, "Can you help me live a little more? I expect good news." Sergio Leone, 1929 to 1989, died when he was 60. That's young. How did he die? He had 3 kids, Francesca, Andrea, and Raffaella. I'm skimming. Heart attack. He's buried in the cemetery of Pratica di Mare. Well, he was overweight and he probably smoked. Everybody smoked back then. Sergio Leone was a director of boundless vision and ambition who invented himself almost as he invented the spaghetti western. Erickson, whose useful essay on the trilogy is at dvdtalk.com, notes that Leone hyped his own career by, quote, claiming to be the assistant director on Robert Aldrich's Italian production of Sodom and Gomorrah from 1962, even though he's fired after only a day. Leone made a forgotten Roman Empire epic in 1961, and then based A Fistful of Dollars so closely on Akira Kurosawa's samurai film Yojimbo that perhaps Gus Van Sant's shot-by-shot remake of Psycho, I've seen that, was not the first time the technique was tried. A man with no little ideas, Leone made 2 other unquestioned masterpieces, Once Upon a Time in the West, starring Charles Bronson, and Once Upon a Time in America from 1984. By the end of his career, Hollywood was suspicious of films with long running times and criminally chopped America from 227 minutes to a sometimes incomprehensible 139. 19 minutes were cut from the first release of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But the uncut versions of all his films are available on DVD, and gradually it becomes clear on how good he really was. That's what Roger Ebert had to say in retrospect on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Sergio Leone. Sadie's under the desk. I know, because she's on my foot, which is currently asleep. She may be asleep as well. Okay, so I have an interview from American Film by Pete Hamill from 1984. The title is I Am a Hunter by Nature, Not a Prey. During the filming of Once Upon a Time in America, Sergio Leone was generally unavailable for interviews. However, earlier in the spring, he found time to talk about his approach to filmmaking. This interview took place in Rome and was translated by Michel de Mateus. Question: when you were a boy, was there an America in your head? Yes, certainly, Sergio Leone. America existed in my imagination. I think America existed in the imaginations of all children who bought comic books, read James Fenimore Cooper and Louisa May Alcott. She wrote Little Women, and watched movies. America is the determined negation of the old world, the adult world. I lived in Rome, where I was born in 1929, when it was the capital of the imperial Mussolini melodrama, full of lying newspapers, cultural ties with Tokyo and Berlin, and one military parade after another. But I lived in an anti-fascist family, which was also devoted to the cinema, so I didn't have to suffer any ignorance. I saw many films. Anyway, it was mainly after the war that I became decisively enchanted by the things in Hollywood. The Yankee Army didn't only bring us cigarettes, chocolate bars, Amlire, Army-issued money, and the peach jam celebrated by Vittorio De Sica and Shoeshine. Together with all of this, they brought 1 million films to Italy, which had never been dubbed into Italian. I must have seen 300 films a month for 2 or 3 years straight. Westerns, comedies, gangster films, war stories, everything there was. Publishing houses came out with translations of Hemingway, Faulkner, Hammett, and James Cain. It was a wonderful cultural slap in the face. And it made me understand that America is really the property of the world, and not only of the Americans who, among other things, have the habit of diluting the wine of their mythical ideas with the water of the American way of life. America was something dreamed by philosophers, vagabonds, and the wretched of the earth, way before it was discovered by Spanish ships and populated by colonics from all over the world. The Americans have only rented it temporarily. If they don't behave well, if the mythical level is lowered, if their movies don't work anymore and history takes on an ordinary, day-to-day quality, then we can always evict them or discover another America. The contract can always be withheld. Question: your father, Vincenzo Leone, was also a film director. How did that affect your first impression of films? And Leone answers, as a child, I was convinced that my father had invented the cinema himself. I knew that my father was Santa Claus, and that on the other side of the cinematic field, beyond the geometric lines of the screen, great masses of technicians, makeup artists, scene shifters, and hairdressers crowded in. Mama One is here, and also Papa One. Greetings, Mama One and Papa One. We're reading an interview with Sergio Leone, the director of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And happy Wednesday to you. I knew all about electric cables, cameras, microphones, reflectors. It's probably also because of this that the technical side of my movie making is so important. I go to the dubbing room as if I'm going to mass, and mixage for me is the most sacred rite. I think filming itself is fun, especially in Death Valley and under the Brooklyn Bridge, where coyotes cry and ships toot their horns. But Moviola is the altar of a voodoo rite. One sits down in front of the console and plays his hand with the heights of the heavens. I always knew that films were made by men and structured like prayers. Could you describe the arduous process of coming up with a screenplay for Once Upon a Time in America? Leone answers, it was after I made The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly that the subject of Once Upon a Time in America began to buzz in my ears. I found this book, The Hoods by Harry Gray, in a Rome bookshop. More than anything else, it was a perfect and loving hymn to the cinema. The story of these Jewish gangsters, unlucky 3 times over and determined 5 times over to challenge the gods, attached itself to me like the malediction of the mummy in the old movie with Boris Karloff. I wanted to make that film, and no other. We began to procure rights to the cinematographic adaptation, which, however, was already in the hands of other film world hombres. It wasn't very easy, but we finally managed, with the cleverness and many dollars, to rip off the rights from the legitimate holders. That was already the first sign of where things were heading. Then the internal screenplay writing season began. Norman Mailer was among the first to work on it. He barricaded himself in a Rome hotel room with a box of cigars, his typewriter, and a bottle of whiskey. But I'm sorry to say he only gave birth to a Mickey Mouse version. Mailer, at least to my eyes, the eyes of an old fan, is not a writer for movies. Mysterious arguments within the production cropped up, material problems and supernatural problems, metaphysical mess-ups of every type, and each successive screenplay came out inferior to the concept. And then, a long time after I had willingly gone over to the enemy, that is, to the production side, there was this meeting with Arnon Milchan, who, before dedicating himself to cinematographic production, must have been employed as an exorcist at some Gothic cathedral. The fact is that everything, from one moment to the next, began to take form. Leo Benevenuti and Stuart Kaminsky, the detective writer and film devotee, miraculously concluded the screenplay. The sun shone again in the sky, and away we all went to the great adventure. We worked solidly for 2 years straight, and we finally reached port, it seems to me, with banners waving in the wind and the crew intact. Question: you seem to be fascinated with American myths. First the myth of the West, now that of the gangster. Why is that? Why indeed? Leone answers, I am not fascinated, as you say, by the myth of the West or the myth of the gangster. I am not hypnotized like everyone east of New York and west of Los Angeles by the mythical notions of America. I'm talking about the individual and the endless horizon, El Dorado. I believe that cinema, except in some very rare and outstanding cases, has never done much to incorporate these ideas. And if you think about it, America itself has never made much of an effort in that direction either. But there is no doubt that cinema, unlike political democracy, has done what it can. Just consider Easy Rider, Taxi Driver, Scarface, or Rio Bravo. I love the vast spaces of John Ford and the metropolitan claustrophobia of Martin Scorsese, the alternating petals of the American daisy. America speaks like fairies in a fairy tale. You desire the unconditional, then your wishes are granted, but in a form you will never recognize. The movie-making plays games with these parables. I appreciate sociology all right, but I am still enchanted by fables, especially by their dark side. I think, in any case, that my next film won't be another American fable, but I say that here and I deny it here too. Question: why does the Western seem to be dead as a movie genre? Has the gangster film taken its place? Leone answers, the Western isn't dead either yesterday or now. It's really the cinema, alas, that's dying. Maybe the gangster movie, in contrast to the Western, enjoys the precarious privilege of not having been consumed to the bones by the professors of sociological truth, by the school teachers of demystification and ad nauseum. To make good movies, you need a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of goodwill. And you need twice as much of it today as you needed yesterday. And the old golden vein in California's movie land, where these riches once glistened so close to the surface, unfortunately seems almost completely dried up now. A few courageous miners insist on digging still, whimpering and cursing television, fate, and the era of the spectaculars which impoverished the world's studios. But they are dinosaurs, delivered to extinction. Question: what was it that you saw in Clint Eastwood that no one in America had seen at that time? Leone answers, the story is told that when Michelangelo was asked what he had seen in one particular block of marble, which he chose among hundreds of others, he replied that he saw Moses. I would offer you the same answer to your question, only backwards. When they asked me whatever I saw in Clint Eastwood, who was playing I don't know what kind of second-rate role in a Western TV series in 1964, I replied that what I saw simply was a block of marble. Another question: how would you compare an actor like Eastwood to someone like Robert De Niro? Leone answers, it is difficult to compare Eastwood and De Niro. The first is a mask of wax. In reality, if you think about it, they don't even belong to the same profession. Robert De Niro throws himself into this or that role, putting on a personality the way someone else might put on a coat, naturally and with elegance, while Clint Eastwood throws himself into a suit of armor and lowers the visor with a rusty clang. It's exactly that lowered visor which composes his character, and that creaky clang that makes it snap down, dry as a martini in Harry's bar in Venice, is also his character. Look at him carefully. Eastwood moves like a sleepwalker between explosions and hails of bullets, but he is always the same, a block of marble. Bobby is first of all an actor. Clint, first of all, is a star. Bobby suffers. Clint yawns. Question: does it surprise you that an actor could become president of the United States? Should it have been a director? They're talking about Reagan. This interview was from 1984. And Leone answers, I'll tell you very frankly that nothing surprises me anymore. It wouldn't even surprise me to read in the newspapers that a president of the United States, for a change, had become an actor. I wouldn't be able to hide my surprises if all he did was take on worse films than those done by certain actors who became presidents of the United States. Anyway, I don't know many presidents, but I do know too many actors. So I know with certainty that actors are like children, trusting, narcissistic, capricious. Therefore, for the sake of symmetry, I imagine presidents too are like children. Only a child who became an actor and then a president, for example, could seriously believe that the day after concealed who knows what new yellow peril. A director, if possible, would be the least adapted of any to be a president. I can picture him more as the head of the Secret Service. He would move the pawns as they would dance accordingly to the end to produce, if nothing else, a good show. If the scene works out, great. Otherwise, you redo it. Old Yuri Andropov, if he had been a director instead of a cop, would have enjoyed greater professional satisfaction, and who knows, he might have lived longer. This is a strange question. Most of your films are very masculine. Do you have anything against women? Leone answers, I have nothing against women, and, as a matter of fact, my best friends are women. What could you be thinking? I tolerate minorities. I respect and kiss the hand of the majorities. So you can just imagine then how I genuflect 3 or 4 times before the image of the other half of the heavens. I even imagined this, married a woman, and, besides having a wretch of a son, I have also had 2 women as daughters. So if women have been neglected in my films, at least up until now, it's not because I'm a misogynist or a chauvinist. That's not it. The fact is, I've always made epic films, and the epic, by definition, is a masculine universe. The character played by Claudio Cardinale in Once Upon a Time in the West seems a decent female character to me. If I can say so, she was a fairly unusual and violent character. At any rate, for a couple of years now, I've been harboring the notion of a movie about a woman. Every evening before going to sleep, I rummage over in my mind a couple of not bad story ideas for it. But either out of prudence or superstition, as is only human, and even too human, I prefer not to talk about it now. I remember that once in 1966 or 67, I spoke with Warren Beatty about my project for a film on American gangsters, and a few weeks later he announced that he would produce and star in Bonnie and Clyde. All these coincidences and visions disturb me. Question: How do you think you fit in among the Italian and other European directors? Which directors do you admire? Which are overrated? Leone answers, yes, without a doubt, I too occupy a place in cinema history. I come right after the letter L in the director's repository. In fact, a few entries before my friend Mario Monicelli, and right after Alexander Korda, Stanley Kubrick, and Akira Kurosawa, who signed his name to the superb Yojimbo, inspired by an American detective novel, while I was inspired by his film In the Making of a Fistful of Dollars. My producer on that film wasn't all that bright. He forgot to pay Kurosawa for the rights, and Kurosawa would certainly have been satisfied with very little, and so afterwards my producer had to make him rich, paying him millions in penalties. But that's how the world goes. At any rate, that is my place in cinema history, down there between the K's and the M's, generally to be found somewhere between pages 250 and 320 of any good filmmaker's directory. It's a very humble answer. I like that. If I'd been named Antelope instead of Leone, I would have been number one, but I prefer Leone. I'm a hunter by nature, not a prey. To get to the second part of the question, I have a great love for the young American and British directors. I like Fellini and Truffaut. However, I'm not an expert on overrating. You should ask the critic, the only recognized experts on over, under, or tepid ratings. The critic is a public servant, and he doesn't know who he's working for. Question, which comes first, the writer or director? And Leone, of course, answers, the director comes first. Writers should have no illusions about that. But the writer comes second. Directors, too, should have no illusions about that. I think the genre of filmmaking, of movies, is a director's genre, and the genre of television series, long format storytelling is a writer's genre, and then the genre of theaters is the actor's genre. What advice, question, would you have for young people who want to be directors? Leone says, I would say read a lot of comic books, watch TV often, and above all, make up your minds that cinema is not just something for snobs, other movie makers, and the mothers of petulant critics. A successful movie communicates with the lowbrow and the highbrow public alike. Otherwise, it's like a hole without the donut around it. Comic books is a great, like in graphic novels, because it's a perfect marriage of images and text, images and story. And you have to, if you want to be director, I think you need to think visually. It's not enough to read a book and imagine it. You have to see it, outlined in, in a graphic form. Question, F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, action is character. Do you agree? And Leone answers, the truth is that I am not a director of action, as in my view, neither was John Ford. I'm more of a director of gestures and silences, an orator of images. However, if you really want it, I'll declare that I agree with old F. Scott Fitzgerald. One of my favorite authors, incidentally. Great Gatsby, one of my favorite books. I reread it every year. Every sentence in The Great Gatsby is a work of art. You can just pick one, just open it to any sentence, and it's perfectly crafted. I often say to myself that action is character, but it's true that, to be more precise, I say clack, action and character, please. Certainly, we must mean the same thing. At other times, for example, when I'm at the table I sometimes say, clack, let's eat. Pass the salt. When you're not making movies, what do you do? And Leone answers, I will confess that since I was a child, when no one dreamed of asking me these questions, I always imagined I would respond with a peremptory and dry, stop right there, nothing doing, I won't even hear of it. My privacy is sacred, and I have no intention of putting it on display in the piazza for the amusement of nosy journalists like you. I try every time, but then They shame me like a dog, and I end up admitting the horrible truth. That is the following: that I sunbathe, go to the movies and to the stadium, think about the next films, read books and screenplays, meet friends, go on vacation sometimes, play chess and hang around the house, irritating my family, and what's worse, superfluous observations. I'm very fond of my family, as all Italians are, including Lucky Luciano and Don Vito Corleone, but I wouldn't know how to talk to them. They say they put up with me, but the truth is, I put up with them. And the last question: now that you've finished Once Upon a Time in America, are you able to step back and assess the film? Leonis answers, Once Upon a Time in America is my best film, bar none. I swear, I would agree. It's a far better story than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is his most popular film, and the one that he's going to go down in the history books for. But Once Upon a Time in America is a fantastic Western. And I know that it would be from the moment I got Harry Gray's book in my hand. I'm glad I made it, even though during the filming I was as tense as Dick Tracy's jaw. It always goes like that. Shooting a film is awful, but to have a movie made is delicious. And, you know, I don't read these before I do the live streams, and I thought he would be talking about Clint Eastwood and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly more. But, you know, we get to hear some of the director's thoughts. Seemed like a very charming man. But he's Italian. I haven't met many Italians who weren't charming. Sadie's here. Say hi to Mama One and Papa One. And I don't know if anyone's in Florida, but if you are, I hope you are okay. I hope you've battened down the hatches. You've hunkered down. You've got a lot of water. You've got all your devices charged and some external batteries. And I hope you get through this. Let's see if I can give you a live update on Hurricane Milton. David's here. It's Category 3, which is better. It was supposed to be Category 5. Everybody say hi to David. Greetings, David. Weakening but still tremendously powerful Hurricane Milton slammed into Florida's coast as Category 3, pushing a massive and potentially deadly wall of water from the Gulf of Mexico. It did lose some of its potency to wind shear as it neared the coast. But yeah, it's still a threat, but it's less of a threat, and that helps. Papa One says, "Hey David, hope you are well, brother." And Mama One says, "Hey David," and David just got back from his brothers. Family is important. Shout out to David's family and Mama One and Papa One's family. I worked out my schedule, Mama One, Papa One, and David, of the live streams. Western Wednesdays. Wednesdays will remain Western Movie Night. For Friday, we're going to do the Bad Honor full game commentary. Saturday is LA Noir, demonetized. Sunday is a wild card, maybe a scary movie, maybe a true crime, maybe ghost stories, maybe more LA Noir, maybe more Bad Honor commentary. And Monday, for the time being, will feature Grand Theft Auto, because I have a lot of Trevor footage that I want to share with you, and I really enjoy Trevor as a character. So that's what we're going to be doing. Tony Vasquez says that I'll take shoveling feet of snow over a hurricane any day of the week. Yeah, I agree. Hurricanes are scary. It's like the hand of God comes down. So arbitrary too. And Pop One says, what sucks? I have people trying to get me to take their horses from North Carolina. That's why I'm getting some Amish friends to help. Then Milton comes around. David says, have you done the Cecil Hotel? Let's look that up. It's in Los Angeles. Is it haunted? Ooh, wow. Reputation for violence, self-cancellation, and cancellation. Ooh, look at this. This is a from 1927 to 2015. Wow. Oh, this is very interesting. I got to make a note of this. Make a note of that, Marston. I thought they had just made up that hotel, David, for American Horror Story, but it seems to be based on the Cecil Hotel, and I like it because I could use a slideshow from that season of American Horror Story, which I believe was just called Hotel. Papa One says, I'm taking in people's horses that are in the hurricane for free, Super Antonio. No stable fees. No, nothing. I got to get my friends to come pick up 15 horses so I can get more to try to help as many as we can. Oh, that's really nice of you, Papa One. How many horses can he take in? 15 seems like a lot. 13 viewers in the chat. I'm not doubting you, but it's just, that seems like a lot of stable space. Maybe we'll do Cecil Hotel on Sunday. We'll do a Sinister Sunday. Mama One. Mama One says, Papa One is overwhelmed and so am I. Did you have time for dinner, Mama One? I had a smoked salmon sandwich with cheese and tomato and lettuce. And you know, someone loves their salmon. But I feed her salmon every day, but still, it's not as good as the salmon that I'm eating. I feed her salmon for her coat and for the omega-3s. Can't hurt. Tony says he got weird looks when I tell people I moved up here willingly. Oh, you're in upstate New York. But I grew up down there. A lot of history in New York. One of the original 13 colonies. Papa One says, we have a very large farm. At our height, we could have had 50 to 100 horses. Keep in mind, this is when we had a bunch of farm hands. But now, because I'm hiring part-time help, we have been able to take 40. Wow. Well, that's very kind of you. And you know, you get what you give. So I'll come back to you. But yeah, donating like that. I had an odd experience today. Papa One says, but my friends are coming to get 15. That's 15 new slots, and I have about 10 horses already on the backlog. So this morning, I was doing my jump ropes, David. Okay, so this is all germane to the. So I had my I had my workout clothes on. It's like I had sweats, and shoes. I jump rope and running shoes, and the dog's sitting on the couch watching me, and we're kind of watching YouTube on the TV, and we hear. At first, I thought it was it was from the TV. It was from YouTube. We hear like shouting, like a big argument going on outside. Okay, so we look out on the balcony, and then we run to the bedroom because so that Sadie can take a look. And there's this homeless man outside who's having an argument with himself, but very violently. He's yelling and cursing and punching the air, and he's in front of a building across the street, and he's looking very scary and violent. And there's a lot of seniors in my neighborhood, and a lot of young families. Like a lot of moms with strollers, and I'm afraid because if there's a confrontation, if he has a confrontation with one of my neighbors, I'm going to have to run out there and help. I'm going to have to intervene. And I don't want to do that, but I had my shoes on. I'm ready to do it. O-Dog's here. Greetings, O-Dog. And so me and Sadie are just watching him just yell and curse and scream. And I'm just praying that nobody, that he doesn't confront anyone, because those never go well. I mean, you're not allowed to defend yourself. If you do, you're the one who's going to be arrested. It's like, and I didn't exactly know what I was going to do. I was just going to have to improvise. But I was definitely, I had my shoes on, and I was prepared to go out. My adrenaline was already running, raised from the from the jump ropes, and it just occurred to me that I might be here for this moment. If something scary happens, that I was put here at this moment to intervene, and I didn't want to intervene, but I was ready to. But fortunately, knock on wood, nobody crossed his path. He just kind of moved on, off my block, towards Starbucks, became someone else's problem. Maybe he walked out into the street. Maybe he walks into Starbucks and starts yelling in there, and they can deal with him. But I didn't have to deal with him, so I was happy about that. But it was odd. It was odd that I was prepared to intervene without question. That, I wasn't going to just hold up my phone and film it and put it online. But I probably would have ended up online. World star! Shout out to O-Dog. Choking out a homeless man. And yes, I have choked out people just in sparring. But yeah, I could do it. And I'm glad I didn't have to. Papa One says, me and my dad used to feel bad for homeless people when we toured cities, but we always helped if we could. Even a couple we took home to the farm to learn to work as farmhands and live there. That's very generous of you, Papa One. I have no sympathy anymore for the homeless. But, I've been hardened just from city living, and yeah, everyone has a story. And, it's like, I think if you live in the city, you have to harden your heart, because everyone has a story. Everyone is deserving of humanity and help, but you can't keep your heart open like that, because you're walking by people every day, and you just have to shield up, armor up, and pick your battles, I guess. Miko says that person must have had a really bad day and just snapped. He seemed to be off his meds. He seemed to be mentally unbalanced. And Papuan says, the most memorable one was this one homeless guy talking to my dad. It turned out he was a Korean war vet. So the next thing you know, my dad and him are sharing a bottle of bourbon. LOL. It reminds me of a story. I go there's a Goodwill that I go to, like, to find vintage um, t-shirts. I bought this t-shirt there. They're really, because there's always cool shirts in my size, and they're cheap. So yeah, I collect vintage t-shirts, and also I check out their DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. Um, but and I'll run by the toy section just in case, because I collect action figures, they might have something. And then, um, and also sometimes I can find something for this one. So I found this Pikachu that was perfect for her. It was her size. It did not have glass eyes, so I don't have to worry about her eating an eye. She can chew it up. I always get it before she eats the stuffing, but she'd have fun playing with it. And it's a Pikachu. It was about like half her size, and it was only $3. So I'm there, and and I see like a single mom. I assumed she was single with 3 kids. Um, and it just seemed to me that these kids had different dads. Don't ask how I knew, but and they're there, and they're like, just like all over the toy section. And the mom says, "Okay, you can have anything you want, but we only have $5 each to spend." And that just broke my heart. And I immediately put the Pikachu back, and I had a 20 on me, and that was my budget for Goodwill. I was gonna, it's like I was just gonna buy some T-shirts and some DVDs, and maybe this Pikachu. And so I just handed her the 20 and said, "Here, it's for your kids." And she said thank you, and and then I just booked it out of there. And just looking at her, my first impression was that she would probably spend it on special medicine, but hopefully, buy some food and something for her kids. But that's one of the very rare times when I have given money. Most of the times I just will walk on by. Miko says Sadie and I have the same feeling, sleepy but trying to stay awake for work. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Miko. Here, come back up here. Yeah. I wish you could see her during the day when she's like actually active and hyper and a wild child. You just see her when she's quiet, and at the end of the day when she's ready to turn in. Like if I opened the bedroom door, she'd like run to the bedroom. It's not even time. I have to tell her we have a live stream. We gotta work. Yeah. Anyways, speaking of work, did you get to see my video on entitled something like 16 favorite Arthur Morgan quotes? I thought it would do much better than it did. I'm kind of disappointed, but I'm going to chop it all into shorts. Why not? See if it works better that way. At any rate, that's about all I have for you tonight. I appreciate all of you being here. And as always, I will keep the stream running for, an additional 10 minutes or so, just in case you guys want to talk amongst yourselves a bit. Mom One says, I loved the quotes one. Okay, Mama One, that video loved you. Shout out to the mods. David has been a member at the Tahiti level for 44 months and says, seen it. David, you are my oldest and dearest friend. Don't tell Serena or Doc. And I couldn't do this without you. Shout out to the mods, Miko and David, of course, and his lovely wife, Chrissy V, and Papa One and Mom One and O-Dog, my brother, absent friends, Serena and Marco. Appreciate all of you friends. Like and subscribe, and enjoy your week. We shall return on Fridays for the Bad Honor Free Roam. Thank you, friends. See you soon. And enjoy the rest of your week.